We need to talk about Umbrella Academy Season 4. Was it a mess? Was it disappointing? I don't know. Well, I have my own opinion, and this is what we're gonna get into. First of all, I want to give a spoiler warning. Obviously, I'm gonna discuss Umbrella Academy Season 4 and also the previous seasons, so if you haven't seen any of them, and especially if you haven't seen Season 4, you should absolutely not be watching this video if you mind spoilers. If you don't mind spoilers, I can't stop you, but here's your official spoiler warning. First of all, hi, my name is Cass. I have a master's degree in film and media, and it just so happens that I am autistic, and one of my hyperfixations is TV shows, and film. That for my credentials on why I'm judging this season. Obviously, it's also just that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. If you have differing opinions, if you think that anything I'm talking about is complete nonsense, you can always let me know. What I would ask you is to stay respectful in the comments. Apart from that, here goes. I want to talk about certain areas in different settings, so you don't have to watch the whole video if you're just interested in what I have to say about the filming style or the music or something like that. I will have timestamps in the description so you can just jump to any of these points. I want to talk about the length of the season. I want to talk about the different character arcs. I want to talk about the music, or for me, the lack thereof. And I also want to talk about plot issues and problems, or holes, essentially. My first problem was the length. We got 6 episodes instead of 10. We got 10 episodes for season 1, 2, and 3, and then only 6 for the final season, which technically isn't a problem. I am all for telling your story in the means that you need. So if you only need 6 episodes to tell your story, sure, go ahead. Just use 6 episodes. Don't elongate something just because you need to hit a certain mark. However, that said, I think 6 episodes was way too little, or too little in general. 10 episodes could have maybe fixed it. I don't know. I have intense problems with the storytelling in itself, so it's hard to say if 10 episodes would have made a difference, because with the writing as it was, maybe it would have just been 10 episodes of more what the hell is happening. In general, I think the pacing was a bit off. I think somehow the setup for the season was both too slow and too short, if that makes sense. I feel like we never really got a setup. There was the mystery of Jean and Jean, but how was that? It felt like too short to really grasp it and to also really connect. But then it was also just too long that they took an entire episode just to drive into that small town that wasn't really that necessary anymore. You're trying to tell a character-driven story for more than 6 characters in only 6 episodes, and some characters are gonna fall short. And this is also gonna be the biggest part of my problem with this season, is that I don't feel like the characters really got to develop. I don't think they were character arcs. I don't think they did them justice. They were characters that were just comic relief. They felt mistreated by the writers almost, but more to that in a bit. Next, I want to touch upon the music. As someone who's been a big fan of the show, also because the music has been absolutely fantastic and such an integral part to the show, I was very disappointed with the final season. I don't know if it was just me, and there were some good songs, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to shade the artists. I just feel like there were way less songs anyways. I mean, yeah, we just talked about how there were only 6 episodes, but it also didn't feel as integral to the plot anymore. It was background music almost, and it wasn't... I love a dance scene, especially because Umbrella Academy is so camp in the way they set it up. Like, the Footloose scene was incredible, and I was so happy when we were led towards a dance scene, but I'm sorry, I didn't care for Jean and Jean to do that. It didn't feel deserved, because in the past it's always been the Umbrella Academy members. They danced, the family danced. It was charming and strange, but it was nice. And this way, it didn't really feel like it belonged. It was like a check mark. and that's it. I just feel like the music did not hit a certain mark for me. It's hard to explain what exactly, but I think a lot of people who also really liked the music in the previous seasons are going to agree with this, that it wasn't an integral part of the show anymore. And that is so sad because that to me is such a huge part of Umbrella Academy. Next, I want to talk about character arcs, and I have my favorite character. Technically, I liked all of the siblings at some point more than some of the others at a different point. They all were very important to me. I think season 1 came out and I was like, ugh. I did have issues with Luther, don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of them got to redeem themselves over the course of the seasons, and all of them had moments where I'm like, ugh, I care about these people, I care deeply. So let's see if you can guess who my very favorite character is. I'm gonna tell you after the character segment, and then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna start by numerology. We're gonna start with Luther, number 1. And to keep this somewhat short, I wrote little notes, like they all got like 1 line per season for the previous seasons, and then I'm gonna talk about season 4. So for Luther, we started off in season 1 with the incredibly problematic Allison and Luther plot. Hated that. Also, Luther was in general not very nice, and I didn't like how he treated Victor, and I just didn't really care for him. In season 2, he actually apologized to Victor, which I love that character development, and he has a theme of bringing everyone together. I think he's very attached to the family as a concept, and he always ends up being very happy when everyone's in the same place. In season 3, I think maybe Luther's best season to a certain point. We get to see him fall in love with someone who is not his sister, and it was so nice. It was so lovely to see him and Sloane, which is what makes season 4 somehow even worse for Luther. Where was Sloane? Why did she get a throwaway line that's like, oh, Sloane would have liked this? She was an integral part to season 3. Where did she go? And then Luther kind of just became a bumbling idiot, kind of. Like, he was also one of the characters who I felt like he was comic relief. Like, it seemed like he was okay-ish, apart from the fact that Sloane was just removed. I don't know, I'm very confused. He once again brought the family together, and then he did not develop. He was suddenly very into antiques, and he was really into the concept of the family once again. Like, he kept consistent with, oh, he brings everyone together, he's attached to the house, he's happy to have Ben home, and uses his probation as a method to keep him by his side. But I don't know, Luther didn't really get to do anything apart from that. He never outgrew any of that. It was just a storyline that fell flat, and I also feel like removing Sloane was just a mistake. She was great. Next is number 2, Diego, or Mommy's boy. So he was very sympathetic to me with his stutter in season 1 and how attached he was to Grace, and I felt very, very sorry for him. Then in season 2, when he had his love-hate relationship with Lila, that then dragged onto season 3 with Lila pretending to have a child that is his, and Diego became a dad. So we got, the boy grew up, became a dad, and then he hated being a dad. Like, his season 4 arc was, oh, he's so dissatisfied with being a dad, even though he's also not staying home. He's delivering packages. He's not home. Lila is staying home, even though she expressed that she was afraid of being a mom, or like fail being a mom. And he just hated suburban life, but not in the way Lila did. And they also never really talked about these things. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I also think that his arc of, ooh, I am actually happy to be a dad, was reduced to one scene he had with the one CIA guy. Like, the entire season he was like, oh, I want to do things. I want to go back to my superpowers. I want to do cool shit. And then he meets the people at the CIA, and like, one of them is telling him, hey, I wish I could see my kids again. They don't talk to me anymore. I would trade it all for family. And they often did that this season, where it's like, it's one scene and that one scene is supposed to give the character growth. Like, this one scene is supposed to fix them or make it seem like they went on a journey when they didn't. He was told by someone that having a family is good. So he was like, oh, maybe my family is good. And that isn't deserving of being called a character arc to me. It was nice to see him be happy about his family and miss Lila, and then he found out about Five and Lila. I want to scream about this. I'm really angry, but I'm saving that for a different part of this video. They really did him dirty, and I think the fact that even towards the end he wasn't sure of what Lila and him were was a major disservice to anyone, including the fandom. Moving on, Allison, number 3. Allison and I have a complicated relationship. She's always been very entitled, a byproduct of her powers. I never felt like she got to be more than a mom who wanted to, or who was an actress in season 1. And then in the second season, she got to be more than that. And like, obviously she suffered incredible trauma. And she met Ray, and they seemed so perfect. They seemed so good for each other. And then season 3 happened, and I hated her. I hated Allison so much. I guess it was hurt people, but it seemed a lot more like Arrested Development, hurt people, if that makes sense to anyone. Like, assaulting Luther, incredibly problematic. The way she treated Victor, horrible. And she was the one connection that Victor had to the family, kind of. Like, Allison was always the one who reached out, so it hurt even harder, I feel like. And then season 4 happened, and she detached herself from everyone because clearly she felt bad about some of the things she had done, but not enough to actually reach out and apologize. And we never got these apologies either. We got Victor being like, hey, we're not friends. That was it. And then she was, again, just a mom. And I feel like if you continuously write female characters whose central conflict is being a mom, that is not very feminist of you. That is, in fact, very horrible. Like, you reduce women to their ability to have children and care for these children. And you could see with Lila and Diego too, where Lila was supposed to feel more about her children. She was the one who was supposed to attach. It wasn't Diego. Diego was attached to family as a concept in the end. And Allison is kind of the same, where she was a mom. And also, why did Ray leave? Why? Why did we never get to see that? Why did she have Klaus as a babysitter in her basement? I have a lot of questions. I also find it very strange that she was always hell-bent on doing everything for Claire, but then I'm supposed to believe that Lila is the one who cares more about the children than Claire does, than Allison does about Claire, in being selfish in that way. Number 4, Klaus. We meet Klaus as, I think he's being reanimated in his first scene. He's an addict. He has PTSD, like all of the siblings, obviously, from Reginald's mistreatment of them. And then he gets to meet Dave, fall in love with him, and suffer trauma. In season 2, he has his own cult. He tries to save Dave by stopping him from enlisting in the army, and then consequently gets hurt and slips back into alcoholism and drugs. And then in season 3, I think they didn't really know what to do with him in season 3, I'm gonna be honest. Well, he kind of kills himself, I think. I'm gonna be honest, I did not rewatch season 3. It's very foggy in my mind right now, because I also feel like we were on a bit of a decline already, and I don't think he did much in season 3. And then season 4. I fucking hate Klaus's character arc in season 4. His fear of dying turned into germophobia was somehow always the butt of the joke. We never got to explore like why is he so afraid of it, because 6 episodes, there wasn't enough time for anything. And then he is so vehemently against getting his powers back because they terrified him and he hated them. And then to save his life, he gets his powers back. And I gotta give it to Allison for being like, hey, he didn't want that. And then he just slips right back just from getting his powers back. He hurts Claire in the process, which the show was hell-bent on showing that he really cares about Claire in the beginning. Like, we wasted a lot of time on that to then get himself killed and have arguably one of the worst things I've ever seen happen to him that we have not unpacked. I want to give a trigger warning. This part deals with sexual abuse, so if you're uncomfortable with this, I will give you a timestamp to jump to. I fully think that Klaus was essentially raped every time someone came in and asked him to let a dead person possess his body to then have sex with them. I feel like this is an incredibly problematic plotline that was mostly also made problematic by the fact that it had no effect on anyone. Like, we never condemned the action as much. Klaus didn't show any negative reactions to it apart from he needs to escape the place. There was no room to explore the trauma that must have come with it and the weight of what was happening. Like, I was very shocked to see it, and it really left a bitter taste in my mouth, and I don't think the show handled any of it well, and I think it was also played off as some random B plot. And that felt horrible. And then they buried him alive. One of his worst fears is locked in a tight room with ghosts, and they just buried him alive, forced to die of suffocation over and over and over again. And we also did not talk about that. This must have had an impact on him, but we never got to see it. Number 5. 5 was kind of a sarcastic asshole, graded by years and years he spent that he never spent with his siblings or anyone else. And I think that was an interesting character concept. And then in season 2, he got to be funny with the paradox psychosis. And the one thing that was consistent about 5 was that he always wanted to save the world. He wanted to do it in season 1 with stopping Victor. He wanted to do it in season 2 with stopping the assassination of JFK. He wanted to do it in season 3 by stopping Victor again. Every time he wanted to save the world. And then I don't know what happened in season 4. First of all, I feel like the character writing was very inconsistent. I think he lost a lot of his I'm actually an old man vibe, and it was more accepted that he just was older than he looked, which also made it incredibly uncomfortable that he ended up hooking up with Lila. Like, I really had to turn away. I did not like that. He became a CIA agent. Tell me how. Like, he still looks like a teenager. Or is that just me? I feel like he looks like a teenager. And then he hung out with Lila a lot. And I was like, no, they wouldn't, right? And then they went. I hated it on every level. I think just because 5 has the mind of an 80-year-old man, that just makes it creepy in the other direction. Like, looking like a young boy and being with an adult woman is weird. And also, being 80 years old and being with a middle-aged woman is weird. I can't, why was so much time wasted on this? Why, I get we explored something in a lot, but this is one of the couples that we spend so much time on, and I don't feel like we should have. Why did it get so much screen time? It was so uncomfortable and so wrong, if you ask me. It made no sense. Like, the one thing that I really always liked was Lila and Diego, and how weird their relationship was and how dedicated it was, though. Like, they couldn't not love each other. And then this happens. And it's like, oh, suddenly they can not love each other. And am I remembering that incorrectly, or was 5 also responsible for Lila's parents dying, and she just gets over that, I guess. I need to save some of my anger for the Lila part of this video, because I have a lot to say about her too. But I just feel like I hated 5 this season. I did not care about him. I liked the idea of the underground. I also feel like it was made up to be a much bigger part than it actually was. Like, the posters suggested that everyone would be involved in this, when it just ended up being Lila and 5. And I did not sign up to watch the Lila 5 show. Sorry. Ben. I love Ben in season 1 and 2. I really, really, really did. I think he was so sweet. He cared so much. And then he went away and we got Sparrow Ben. Sparrow Ben is kind of an asshole. Like, he's been kind of an asshole. That was his character trait, and I find him very unlikable. And somehow we end up taking Sparrow Ben with us. The guy who has literally no real connection to any of them that much, because he hasn't known them his entire life. The whole concept of their dysfunctional family is that, yes, they are dysfunctional, but they've also known each other for so long. And Sparrow Ben isn't one of them. And then they made him a crypto bro. Disgusting. And we're supposed to care about crypto bro asshole Sparrow Ben. And it doesn't really work for me. I get why Victor tried so hard to save him, but it would have made so much more sense, and it would have had so much more weight if it had been their Ben, not Sparrow Ben. His whole character trait was horny. Once again, it felt strange. It wasn't deserving, because they had one talk and suddenly they was in love with each other based on something that happened in a parallel world, I suppose, because the show never fucking told us. I don't need everything spelled out, but I feel like some things unsaid is complete bullshit and you just don't have an answer for it. And the relationship between Ben and Jennifer is one of them. It's like, oh, he was so dedicated to saving her, but he's such an asshole who doesn't care about anyone really. And it's inconsistent. And it was just to move the plot forward, and I'm mad about it. Number 7, Victor. I felt really bad for Victor. Season 1, oh my god, the trauma. Like, I always felt like his actions were justified, because if your family treats you like an outcast the entire time, yeah, sure, write a book about them. They clearly kind of suck. And I always liked the character arcs that Victor went through. Like, obviously he's more susceptible to manipulation because he just wants to belong. And then he does get to belong with Sissy and Hassan in season 2, and I love that, and it was so nice. And then we got season 3 and Victor gets to come out, and that was very special to me personally. Then we just make up an argument between Allison and Victor, and Allison lashing out. And once again, I talked about it in Allison's part, that I think that she never apologized is so strange, because Victor tried to mend their relationship again and again and again in the past. The fact that Allison never did, I guess at least they kept it consistent. I just didn't like it, and I feel like they set Victor up as like a very macho character in the 4th season. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like just because someone comes out as a trans man doesn't mean you have to give him a weird, oh, he sleeps with so many women character trait. Like, they tried with, oh, he has a life in Canada, he has a bar, but they clearly showed that he doesn't, because he doesn't really have anyone in his life except for the bar. And then they made him very stereotypical in, oh, he's just one of the guys, you know? But it was so uncomfortable, because none of the other guys are just reduced to being a man. I think he was one of the only characters who did get a character arc in the way that what he wanted, which is being seen as part of the family, specifically by his father, he did get in a way. However, didn't really get acknowledged by anyone else in the family, because the show is so hell-bent on splitting everyone up all the time. You got a great ensemble, you have fantastic actors, and you just move everyone away from each other. And usually it's not even like two of the siblings hanging out, it's just one sibling hanging out with some random person. In Victor's case, his dad. I didn't mind it as much. I think Victor got what he needed. However, I'm kind of mad that he tried so hard to save Ben and he didn't get to. Like, he tried so hard to show that compassion that he had learned and give it back, and he was so good and so nice, and it led nowhere. Unofficial number 8, Lila. Lila wasn't in season 1, and then in season 2 we meet her at a mental institution, and she has this on-off relationship with Diego, and then we find out that she works for the agency, and she is just wild. I loved Lila. I think she was always a wild card, and I think she always just kind of did what she wanted to do, and I was like, good for her. Take it all back. Season 4 made her a bored mom who hated suburban life. And that is also the thing that I already criticized with Allison, is that Lila was just a mom. And that's not how you write female characters. They can be more than mothers. And it pissed me off to no end that this was also just her central struggle, was my kids. What do I want? I'm so bored, but I care about my kids so much. She always had to care about her kids, and she didn't get to be selfish ever, and it's such a missed opportunity, because guess what? Moms are human. It's also normal to put themselves first sometimes, and also ideally you have a husband who will also just take care of the children. It was such an antiquated gender stereotype, and Lila and Diego were so unlike that. Just because they happen to be a man and a woman doesn't mean they have to fulfill every stereotype and become the perfect family. We never got to actually feel about their relationship. It felt like from the beginning of the season, it was supposed to be they don't like each other anymore. And it never really reconciled. Instead, she just tells Diego, in the case of he might die right now or his brain will melt, oh hey, we need a break from each other. And it was rushed and it was weird, and I hated Five and Lila together. Especially because why was all the care she had for Diego suddenly gone? Like, where did it go? Is it just... I don't know. Why was she just mom and then Five? Why Five? Why the hell? I can't. I'm really, really mad about this. I feel like they wanted this to happen so badly, and they forced it with such effort. And also, listen, I love Lila. I loved Lila in the past. However, why did she get so much more screen time than any of the others? Like, maybe it's subjective, and it was just because the screen time she had was so horrible, because it was usually with Five, and it was like, no, please don't get together. But she got so much screen time. And for what? The conflict stayed the same. The characters didn't grow. They did not progress. It served nothing. It served no point to me. It was not heartwarming. I did not want it to happen. Tell me if you disagree with me, please. Maybe it's just I hate it, but I don't think so. I think there's a fair share of people who really like Diego and Lila together. I briefly want to talk about some characters that weren't one of the main 8, but still were part of the season nonetheless. Jean and Jean. I like Jean and Jean as a concept. I think they were so fun. I loved them together. I loved the actors portraying them. I think they got cool scenes. But for what? I hated that we never got to explore how Jean... Okay, name me. How Jean actually founded the Keepers. How did that all come to be? How did they meet? Anything. They just ended up being too quirky. They just became caricatures and kind of unnecessary, and that's also one of the big issues I'm going to talk about in a bit. It was so unnecessary. Reginald got redemption. The most asshole character in all of Umbrella Academy history got a redemption arc and suddenly got away with, that's not me, that wasn't me, that was some other Reginald. No, you were an evil bastard who just was, you were so selfish, and somehow we should feel bad for you because of your wife. Your children all had spouses. Okay, Nemi. Yeah. Speaking of wife, Abigail, are you okay? Have you got any character traits at all? What is her character? I have a whole part about this too, but did this season feel a bit homophobic to anyone else? Or was that just me? Because I got strong vibes. She's part of that, not in a way that she would be homophobic towards her children, but maybe she would. Maybe she would, you know? I don't know. Let's talk about Jennifer, because she's also just a foil. I can't say I cared about her because we never got to, because we don't know anything about her. The only scene we see her in is her standing up to defend the town sheriff. I wanted to care about Jennifer, but she got no characterization. She has no character traits, and therefore I do not care. I did not care about her and Ben because what am I supposed to care about if we have met her 2 seconds ago? What does she do for Ben? Nothing. What does Ben do for her? Nothing. They make each other worse. Which is hard to achieve considering Ben is a crypto bro. Just saying. I said I would say it. My favorite character is Klaus. I love a queer disaster. I just feel for him. I love him dearly. I cosplayed him. I really, really loved Klaus. And now to my final part, which is just general issues, problems, plot holes, just anything else that didn't fit into the previous categories that I have issues with. Starting off with the sexism. First of all, I feel like there was a lack of female characters, and there was just an intense lack of 3-dimensional female characters. I've talked about it with Allison's part, I talked about it with Lila's part, Jennifer, Abigail, Jean. No one really got to be a cool character. Except, I feel like maybe it was it sexism or was the season just really bad? Let me know what you think, because I can't wrap my head around it. Was it just bad writing, or was it that a lot of the women got particularly bad writing? Like, stop reducing women to motherhood. The deli scene. The whole season, everything Five does to save the world, he will suddenly stop doing because he talked to himself in a deli. It was so convenient. It was so undeserving. You can't pull this off without losing your viewers. Like, you just sent him into a world where he talks to himself because he failed to save 145,000-ish timelines. So little, by the way. Only that little? It's not deserved. It's like, Diego talks to a person and realizes his life doesn't suck. It's too convenient. if you read this in a book, the book has 5 pages. And you just make some drama up before and afterwards. So it's not as obvious that you're a bad writer. The Keepers. All of it. It made no sense. How did it become such a big thing? How were they in the CIA? Why was it huge? What was up with the song? Why did they decide that a song would be the call to arms? Why was it, how is Victor late when who knows where the fuck they all came from? How did it become a huge thing? And just people blindly following Jean and Jean. Why did we never get to see any of that? It was, again, so convenient. Hargreaves has a private military army. They have the Keepers. Where's the payoff? Also, why did Jean and Jean not get what they wanted? They were the ones who were convinced that this timeline was wrong and that they deserved something else, that they had better lives. Clearly, they must have been wrong, because in the utopia that happened afterwards, they did not. They did not deserve better, apparently. Or something. It just makes no sense to me. Jennifer just doesn't make any sense. How did she get there? Why does she have this Durango inside of her? Is that also from a different alien? Where does it come from? I'm very confused. I think... Why was she in the squid? I think Jennifer just does not make sense. From start to finish, I think she makes no sense. And she's just been shoved in to explain the season. And kill everyone, I guess. Kind of a disservice too. Like, don't get me wrong, I love an evil woman, but she wasn't even evil. It's not like she did it out of maliciousness. She just happened to do it. It wasn't even her fault. For 2 episodes, they made us think that the solution could be Victor removing the marigold from Ben and saving the world. Now here's the thing. If Victor is the only character in the siblings who kind of gets a character arc, it feels like you're setting him up to be the sacrificial lamb. And in a way, maybe that would have been a little bit better even. And I'm not saying this would have been my ideal solution. I don't think that would have been fair either. I just think that if you give us Victor can remove the marigold, why sacrifice all of the siblings? Why can't Victor remove the marigold from everyone? Give it back to the cleanse and everyone gets to live. Why was that not a solution? Also, in the same vein, Abigail's plot made no sense either. Like, her whole concept was the world needs to end. So Ben and Jennifer need to be horny, I guess. But couldn't it have been anyone of the Umbrella Academy? Couldn't it have been any one of the siblings? Why would you risk everything by sending every single sibling to look for Jennifer? It risked your whole plan, and then you had the marigold. And I thought the problem was that the marigold was in this world, and you needed the cleanse. So here's the thing. You abduct one of them, inject them with the marigold, make them make out with Jennifer, yeet the rest of the marigold in, there you go, save the world. Why was it an elaborate scheme that had no payoff and sucked? Why was she a shapeshifter with a scorpion stinger or something? I don't even have the words anymore because it's just plain stupid. How do Claire, Grace, and the twins continue to exist when the parents that gave them life were cleansed from existence? That makes no sense. It just makes no sense. Do they remember them? Probably not, because they ceased to exist. The twins never even got names. Like, oh, Grace. Who were the twins? Did we ever see them? It's just plot device. Reginald just has stuff around his house to fix the memories that another Reginald has tainted. Don't get me wrong, everyone remembering that they've been brainwashed kind of, because all they know about Ben's death is the same sentence they said to the press, was pretty cool. I think that was very nice. That was the one thing I will give this season. But why does this Reginald just have this stuff? He doesn't even need to get it. He just has a place in his house. How does he know? Sloane? Where is Sloane? Seriously, what the hell is Sloane? There's 43 children that are like the Umbrella Academy. We learned that in the earlier seasons. 43. That they all just stand there and get cleansed. And then why was there only 8 flowers when there's 43 children? They just don't matter. I feel like whoever made this season did not know about the other seasons somehow. Like, how do you not remember your own material? The homophobia. I'm sorry. The complete lack of Klaus's queer identity. Dave was not mentioned with a single word. It's more of a vibe than a confirmed feeling, but I feel like... Oh, my light went off. We continue. I feel like this season, just... The previous seasons all were kind of fruity, if you know what I mean. Like, we got Victor and Sissy, who were at that point queer. We had Dave and Klaus has always been so queer.
Is that my skirt?
Oh, yeah, this. It's very breathy on the bits.
Which is why I loved him so much. Like, one of the first scenes we see him in, he's wearing a skirt. Like, he clearly does not give a shit. And I love that about him, and I love that we had a character in a Netflix show who got to be that. And what was this season? It's like they dialed it all back. They just completely removed any hint of queerness from the show. And then one of the worst scenes for me was when Jean sat down next to Reginald and took his hand, and I was like, is this supposed to be funny? Am I supposed to be laughing about the fact that these guys are holding hands right now? It felt so strange. Especially with Lila getting the trad wife treatment. All the women being just mothers. It's like they took everything that was kind of queer about the previous seasons and just turned it back and made it worse. It did not feel diverse in the slightest. And I think if you make TV like you did 20 years ago, in the year 2024, you're doing something wrong. You're doing a disservice to a lot of communities and a lot of marginalized people everywhere. It felt strange, and as a queer person, it felt homophobic. It felt weird. Is it a choice to not have Victor's transition factor into it more? I guess, but on the other hand, it could have been such a meaningful story to tell. Anyway, this is what I thought about season 4. I would love to hear opinions. Please validate my opinions or tell me that you disagree. Tell me what you disagree with, what you thought. Am I completely wrong? Was this brilliant writing and I'm just suffering like hallucinations or something? Like, please share your thoughts. Maybe prayers. No, I'm just really disappointed, and I will just not rewatch this season. I don't think I can, because they turned a show that was really near and dear to my heart and did a lot right and tried a lot and was ambitious, and turned it into something so lackluster and strange. Anyway, you can check out other things I've done. This channel is kind of all over the place, so I do a lot of different things, like short films or video game reviews. Thank you for spending some time with me, and let's hope we can all get over this very disappointing season finale. Or maybe you're just over it already. Maybe there was nothing to get over. Who knows? Thank you for listening, and bye.